Okay, welcome everybody to the Conservation and Heritage Advisory Committee. Welcome back and Happy New Year to you. Hope you had an enjoyable break. We'll get straight into things. You have apologies from Paul McLaughlin, Vice Chair. Apologies from James Boone, new member you will recall. And apologies from David. I'm not aware of any others. Lindsay.
Nobody else.
No. Okay, thank you. Are there any declarations of interest amongst us? No. Okay, thank you. Text. Oh, sorry, late items. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, none of those either. Minutes of the previous meeting, which was the 30th of November. I take it you've all had a chance to look through those.
Printed, Chair.
Okay, proposer, thank you. Councillor Smale, seconder, please.
Yeah.
Max, thank you. Items determined since last meeting. I think there's only one. You'll see that in your pack. And items not being considered. Also, you've seen for information, really. Which takes us on to the items to be considered this afternoon. Start with Becketwell substation.
So this application is a reserved matters application. So it goes into a little bit more detail under the outline application that was approved. And this covered the Becketwell, Landlock Victoria Street, Green Lane, Macklin Street, Beckley Street, Folly Street, and Becketwell Lane. This proposal is in relation to the erection of a substation and associated works. So you'll notice within the information and on this photograph that there is already one there. So this application is for an additional one. The one that's already there is undertaken by Western Power, and as a statutory undertaker, they can undertake that without planning permission. However, the additional one needs permission. And you can see on the plan, as you would have seen online, the location of the proposed one. So just looking at the phasing of the Becketwell and the sites, the proposed substation is proposed on site 2, adjacent to Macklin Street, in that location. This was in brief. It covers the remainder of the land in all Devon's building ownership, surface car park on Becketwell Lane, and it is partially within the conservation area, and opposite to obviously the Performing Theatre on Macklin Street. So here's the phasing plan, and because the application was outline, this is the extent of the detail that we have other than what's being submitted for. And then there's an extract from the master plan. Given the design access statement, looking along the view along Macklin Street, the drains on the right hand side. This side of the substation, and that's what's proposed. With galvanised metal gates, drop curb, and a palisaded fence.
Okay, thank you, Chloe. So this is another substation to GRP kind of prefab arrangement to sit next to the existing one that you see. So what we're looking at essentially is just a mirror image of that, including the same palisade gates and fencing treatment around it. Chris, did you want to ask a question?
Well, yes, I was just going to comment on it.
If I can just set it up and then
Oh, yeah, sorry, yes.
I'll come to you first. So as Chloe has said, the first substation, well, the existing one that you can see in the photograph, didn't need planning permission because it was done under the permitted development rights of the statutory undertaker. So that just happened. And the proposal now, which does need permission, is to basically copy that arrangement. So the master plan that you saw shows that the intention is that there will be development wrapping around the corner of Macklin Street, but clearly there'll be a gap now because the substation's there, and a wider gap because there'll be two substations there. And the Palisade treatment, well, it's hard to say that that's making a positive contribution to the conservation area, but comments and observations, please, Chris.
Yes,
not with you.
Yes, sorry to jump in too soon.
No, go.
Raising my hand too early. Yes, I mean, assuming that somebody has investigated possibly use of an existing cabinet for twice the capacity, you know, sort of sharing, assuming that has been investigated and found not to be possible, and also assuming this is an essential piece of infrastructure, then I suppose it's quite sensible to put them next to each other rather than have two separate things across somewhere else on the site. So, you know, that said, that sort of fencing really is totally inappropriate in a city centre, you know, and certainly in this sort of location. You know, I think they can do far better than that Palisade fencing. Whether they can do anything about the existing one, I don't know. But even if the new one was screened with something more suitable, a stone wall, for example, on all sides, you know, with some sort of suitable gates, wooden gates or whatever, you know, it would look far less alien than that metal fencing. That you know, it's quite offensive, and it's this, you know, in those spiky things, which, you know, obviously are there to stop people flying over and so on. But it just doesn't seem right to me to have that. So anything we could do to improve in terms of its external visual appearance would be very welcome, I think.
Okay, thank you. I can only assume, like you, that they have explored you know, whether there's capacity in the existing. I assume there isn't, and they need another one. That what they did say in the application is that they looked into integrating it somewhere within the development, which you often find, and that they weren't able to do that. So took the decision to site it next to the existing one. So any other comments?
Only that I agree with every word, Chris.
Yeah. Okay, very good.
Yeah. So bringing the comments to be made, and it'd be good to see some sort of creative disguise as to the presence of those animals that have got to be there, haven't they? But shiny new developments and then something like that stuck in the middle of it.
Yeah, I echo the same comments really. I mean, I've seen substations across the city that are built around it with brickwork and wooden panels and fencing, and in fact, unless there was an electrical symbol that's attached to them, you wouldn't have known there was a substation sitting behind some of these. But could just someone, for clarity, I'm learning a lot about planning. Could you just explain to me again why that one didn't need planning consent? Sorry, that was permitted to be built, and then this one has come to us. I just don't understand how that
Statutory undertakers had permitted development rights from the word go, just like the church used to have, and they could do anything they like without referring to us.
Okay, that makes a little bit more clear sense.
Yeah, that's about the size of it. Yeah, so I mean, in the interest of them pushing on and getting things, you know, essential infrastructure in place, they basically get permitted development rights so they can crack on and do it. So that's what they've done. So they haven't spoken to anybody about that. There's no recognition that what they've done there is in a conservation area, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, no problem.
That's that's why that's happened. So in theory, we can influence potentially the new one, but not necessarily, there's not necessarily anything we can do about that, which is there already.
Chair, I was just going to ask that, whether there's anything that we can do to say to the utility companies or whoever,
Yes.
you know, whether they can incorporate the two.
Yeah, we
But
can,
I suppose it's outside of the remit of the application.
yeah, we can, it's up to them in the end, but yeah, we'll certainly make that recommendation.
Yes, it's the General Permitted Development Order that is being referred to in terms of you know, the grants planning permission for lots of things, and as it does for householders, you know, so you can do so much, but Max was absolutely right, you know. So, but sometimes there are conditions. I don't know, in this particular case, it might be worth a quick look, but sometimes it might say, yes, you can do it, but you've got to have the design or the sort of, you know, so it might be worth a quick check. But certainly I'm aware of very recently at Western Power wanting to put a substation in, and residents in that particular area arms about it, and they did change the external appearance quite considerably and clad it in a stone surround, you know, so it can be done. Perhaps we need to ask whilst this one's being done.
I think we do, yeah. Okay, any other comments? Okay, thank you all. So I think that's an objection then from the
You're right.
committee on the basis that we ought to be looking at something that will enhance and not detract from the character and appearance of the conservation area. We think that the bare galvanized palisade fence is not an appropriate boundary treatment. So we would urge them to reconsider that and ideally incorporate the existing in the same solution, because they will be read together. That boundary will create a gap in the frontage, which will need a kind of unified treatment. So that would be our recommendation, Lindsay. Thank you. Thanks, Chloe. That takes us on to Yew Tree Cottage. Doors and closed.
This is a full planning application, a listed building consent application for the installation of replacement windows and a door to this grade 2 listed building in Allister Conservation Area. Number 19 Bourne Hill, you can see photograph and the plan. So here is the existing elevations and the proposed elevations showing the windows and doors which are proposed to be replaced. So the two end elevation windows are not being affected or impacted by this proposal, but there are a large number of other windows and doors which are. Some internal photographs have been submitted since the submission of the application, but they're not particularly clear. So, and it hasn't been possible to undertake a site visit. This is occurring next week. However, just going through the different windows. So these are the windows which are proposed to be replaced. So there's a number on the elevation to the side. In terms of window 13 and 14, there's some information, a bit of a close-up of a more modern casement. Drawings relating to window 13 and 14 in terms of elevation. And just to draw your attention to that. And here are the other photographs beyond the gate. Just showing four windows which are supposed to be placed on those elevations. And looking at the internal photographs, the ones on these, the ground floor ones definitely seems So also got some examples of model windows on the left-hand side, they're all single glazed. And obviously not very detailed glazing bars. On the right-hand side, these are windows that are further towards the wall themselves, and it's quite difficult to see the face of these photographs the exact profile, but hopefully we'll be able to. This will be clarified next week. So these are just a couple of examples, such as the side door that has been proposed to be replaced, so the windows are proposed and doors supposed to be timber, double glazed, quite a thick 24mm sealed unit with stuck-on glazing bars. The exterior is proposed to be painted black and the interior white. So that was a quick update in terms of the information.
Okay, thank you, Chloe. So we're only concerning ourselves here with windows, replacement windows and doors. The heritage statement is a bit thin in that it doesn't tell us a bit about too much detail about the existing windows. I mean, they do look to be modern casement windows, but we can't see all of them in the information that's been submitted, so it's not entirely clear. But they are proposing timber, but they're also proposing double glazed with plant-on glazing bars with spaces in between the double glazing, which obviously gives like a flat reflection across the whole thing as opposed to individual panes. So yeah, comments, please.
Well, if I can say so, because
Yeah, please do.
I think it's strongly opposed to what one might call stick-on glazing bars. I mean, that the character of the cottage is that the light will reflect off the windows in the way that it was originally intended. And although they are 20th century windows, they almost certainly replicate the sort of window that was there previously. And I think they really need to go to put proper hames in and separate panes throughout. However, otherwise it's going to radically change the appearance of the cottage.
Yeah, which can be done with slender double glazed.
Yes, the columns are slender. That's the other problem with plastic. It tends to be very thick, but yes, that you can get them.
Okay, any other comments? No?
So what colour are they going to paint?
Yes, it's blank now.
Same colour, black outside, white inside.
Sure. There was a comment in the papers, something around replacement of some timber that was associated with or around one of the windows. But there was no detail around that, and I just wondered whether.
Yeah, I think that may be in relation to that one in the kind of eyebrow, if you like, of the thatch window 13.
Yeah.
The window in the middle is, so I think it's partly to do with the supplier who's doing their they're supplying essentially a standard.
They're not doing the other
standard component. They're not doing those bits. So I think that they were referring to. So someone else is doing that.
To have those details.
I guess that detail is important.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm a bit nearer than you are. It says there are no drawings for the two triangles either side.
That's it.
As these are supplied by other suppliers, they will not prove to those unfinishes. So it is those two. But
Okay. Anybody else? No. So I think we're urging them to provide more detail then. First of all, in terms of the age of the windows themselves, all the windows, so that we understand that better, and then detail in terms of the bits that aren't covered in here, around that window 13. And then we have been consistent about this. There's a presumption against plant on glazing bars and double glazed units. We understand the need to make the building more thermally efficient, but there are other solutions using thinner section double glazed units, which can use the slender glazing bars that would be more appropriate than traditional. So,
Chair, do we need to say anything about the door?
we haven't yet. I mean,
Just whilst we're going back to them.
yeah,
Whether that was all right.
So you see the door in the photograph, or you'll have seen the door in the photograph. It's the detail.
Yeah.
So
I think the same applies.
Would the occupier get more advice when Chloe visits? Will you be able to give them advice as to what is appropriate for a Grade 2 listed building, replacement of windows?
yeah, I mean, obviously I'm there to look at this application but yes, I mean, there's the opportunity of having a discussion while I'm there.
So you're going next week.
Yes.
So you'll probably know more when you visited.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, that would be helpful to give them advice on the day, I guess. Two, thank you. Next on the agenda then is 27 Iron Gate.
Did you want to object or no object, or just leave it more detail?
I think leave it, we need more detail at this stage.
Come back unless the details can be sorted. Final comments.
Yes. Any seven, Iron Gate?
This is the 29 gate, the listed on takes some very minor changes to the ground first floor. Change to the second floor. So there is a heritage statement which is relatively limited. The outcome is that the original range along Iron Gate with a mid-20th century extension to the rear of that and a late 20th century extension at the back. We've been on site and had a look at it. It does seem to be correct in terms of that assessment. It's a very fine looking building, formed obviously the gate. When you're looking at, well, I'm sure you would have seen when you look at the plans online, it's quite difficult to spot the difference between the existing and proposed ground floor. However, the middle plan shows which was in the heritage statement, does give you an idea of where the minor changes are occurring on the ground floor. So that's on the middle plan, just to highlight.
Sorry, Chloe. So the two circles on the middle plan are showing you
there's three,
where the changes are
exactly.
proposed.
So there's three red outlines, just
Sorry,
outlining
three, yeah.
just
Thank you.
outlining areas where there are changes. They're quite minor on the beginning of the 20th century buildings. The one top right is changing the configuration of the WCs. So it's rather than gents and ladies, it's just gents downstairs and ladies and gents up on the first floor. So there's some general photographs within the ground floor that you have seen. To the first floor, once again, the changes are, as you can see on the middle plan, within the more modern part of the building. So and this is where the kitchen area is, and it's blocking various openings, subdivided to provide some more seating areas, and then offices at the back. So, and that's the extent of those change, that change. And here's the kitchen area, bottom right, and you can see top right, looking from where, adjacent to where the kitchen is, looking back at the main range, and you see the original back wall of that original building. So on the second floor, there's a bit more change in terms of in the one of the rooms fronting Iron-Gate. There's a change proposed. So there's currently a downstand beam, which you can see in the top right photograph. What's being proposed is installing a bedroom within that space and proposing sort of a dogleg wall right up to this wing. There's no detail as to whether it's going to be full height or jutting out from the underside of the beam into this space to form that space. And there's a proposed doorway that is stood into that wall in that location, as you can see. And then bottom right is a photograph just of the general space, just showing you that general space. More on the second floor. On the third floor, there's no changes proposed. However, when I went on site, it was clear that there was some very large vents within the third floor space. We are currently looking at the planning history and the specific 1983 application regarding roof works, and because it's very unusual to have such large vents internally. And the new owner, who is the applicant, is looking at whether the vents can be removed, as they might not be needed for their new non-food venture. On the plans also, it does highlight a new heating system, and you'll have noticed some photographs showing quite a few heating pumps. So that's the update on that.
Thanks, Chloe. So bringing the pub back into use, some modest change on the ground floor towards the rear, involving a later part of the building anyway, to create more seating. On the first floor, the loss of the kitchen in favour of, I think, karaoke booths. And then so not much change at all in terms of that to what's already been much altered. On the second floor, that's the residential, that manager's flat. So they're seeking to create an extra bedroom. I think it's a 2-bedroom arrangement at the moment. That plan in front of you there shows that extra partition that they're hoping to provide right up against the window reveal. And then the top floor there, it looks like there's the ducts that probably didn't get permission in the first place, but rather sort of sterilise the whole space. So it'd be nice if they could go, although they're not mentioned in here as such. So any comments, please? Chris?
Yeah, I looked at the heritage statement. I was quite interested that the rear elevation was so grand, of the original. Not the extent, the same treatment as the front. And then I think one of the older maps showed that there seemed to be an approach from the rear with trees, the tree line. So both front and back were seen as quite important. Obviously, what's been added on twice is of questionable character. These alterations, which are predominantly within the new anyway, well, all it seems to me to be appropriate really for the use and not harmful.
Yeah.
To the important parts of the building, which, as I say, is the front bit. So I really didn't feel there was any objection.
Yeah. Well, they're all in the newer bit except that second floor partitions. But
Yes, that's, yeah.
I was going to say, I'm pleased I was to see that it was going to be reopened.
Yeah,
In that, especially in that area.
Yeah.
It's quite quiet at the moment.
Yeah.
So,
It's a fascinating and important building, and a fact which doesn't really emerge from the heritage statement, because although it looks Queen Anne, it was built in 1755 as the headquarters of Crompton and Newton's Bank. So it was a bank, and that shop front, about most tactfully put in 1890 something by Percy Curry for Alderman Brigden for his outfitting department. It's about the most tactful shop front in the whole town. And I am so old that I can remember sitting as an officer from the museum at a meeting of this committee in 1991, when permission was applied for to add the back bits at the back. And at that time, the whole of the rear elevation was perfect, hadn't been touched. And the committee said, you mustn't damage it. But others thought otherwise, and it went ahead. But it's really quite an interesting building. And as you say, it had a rear access because Mr. Newton, Mr. Crompton lived above it. Now, so the first floor is his living quarters and the second floor is his bedroom. So that's it still reads like that, although there must have been ornamental plasterwork and things which have been lost by dropped ceilings and things. But it's really a wonderful house.
good, thank you. Any other comments?
supportive of it.
Yes. Okay, so I think
all for it.
Committee are very pleased to see the building brought back into use. A very handsome building, making a very strong contribution to the townscape. So I think I think we're comfortable with the extent of the alterations that are proposed. I mean, perhaps the partition in question could be dealt with such that it's treated with a little bit of care, so it doesn't impose itself too much on the window reveal. It seems to collide with the very edge of it at the moment. So a bit more detail on that. No objection.
No.
Thank you. And that takes us on to 1 St. Peter's Street, the bank.
This is 1 St. Peter's Street, listed building application and advert consent application for internal and external alterations, including replacement signage to grade 2 listed within the city centre conservation area. So in terms of, there has been previous changes to signage in 2016 and rebranding signs works to cash points in 2018. So the proposals are to the exterior, cleaning of the stone facade below the dashed line, which I'll show you over. So the lower part of the facade, using a DOF type cleaning system, replacement of 2 projecting signs, and they're proposing to utilise the existing fixing holes, signs to be in conservation style decorative main bracket. And they're not to be illuminated. Then there's 4 new fascia signs to be installed, and there has been an amended plan to confirm that they're not to be illuminated. The 4 fascia signs are individual acrylic letters fixed to the face of the building on the detail. There's some vinyl to be changed around the door. And window graphics to be removed. And they're actually looking at just painting the doors and not the ground floor window frames as previously stated on one of the plans. And then there's some small scale signs that just be placed on them to be like for like. So here's the elevations existing top left, proposed to right. The detail on the signs of the individual letters. So again. And then inside works are relatively small scale. So this is the ground floor. So relocating the express banks, which are fixed to the floor. The existing modern stud partitions have been removed, and there are some new power data needed. So the last units that are being upgraded and replaced. New timber privacy screens installed to match the existing historic panelling. Planking pole being proposed to be fixed to floor. And there's generally some new information and update of signage. So that's generally it's on the ground floor, first floor and second floor. Mainly it's redecoration and replacement furniture. So that's pretty much it. There was also a reference to some replacement air conditioning units or air conditioning vents and things you'll have noticed on the drawings. There's some photographs that you've seen just showing the exterior and the internal existing screens, which are going to be replaced with some panelled ones instead. And that's a quick summary.
Great, thank you, Chloe. So really important building in the heart of the city, but very minimal change proposed here. Essentially, sign like-for-like sign replacement to bring them up to their current branding thinking, I guess. Cleaning using the DOF steam system, which is kind of conservation means of gently cleaning fabric of the building. And from the plans, it looks like most of the internal, if not all the internal changes, are to do with freestanding panels and screens and such like. There's some intriguing absence of information on the floor plans that they're not allowed to show us for security reasons. So goodness knows what goes on in there, but we'll never know. But yeah, that's the summary really. But Chris, yeah.
Yeah. Well, as you say, it's fabulous, isn't it? Really, you described it informal. It's in a very prominent location, you know. And I think sometimes we ought to congratulate organisations. It's hard to think. I never say that about a bank, really, but you know, they've been wonderfully restrained in the external aspects, you know, so that the signs are appropriately sized, located, reuse of existing holes where possible, not illuminated, you know. It's a model application in that respect, and I think a lot of other organisations could learn from that, you know, because we often see people trying to do the biggest thing and garish thing possible, and you know, sometimes it's good to sort of sell quality rather than you know, sort of just trying to attract the eye sort of thing, you know. So I you know, I think say it's a very good application from that point of view, and I couldn't really see any problem with the internal alterations either, in terms it's maintaining a very valuable use in there's so few banks around now. So you know, that's good. So I was okay with the whole thing really.
Thank you.
Just echo that statement, and I mean, it's nice to see a bank that's actually staying in the centre of the city and spending some.
Showing their commitment.
Absolutely, and spending some money on the building as well. You know, because there's all these banks pulling out at the moment.
And really, the only thing is to maintain the integrity of the banking hall. Just moving partitions about really doesn't amount to a hill of beans, really.
No.
Also support the idea of any window stickers that they've got on the removal. They said they're going to remove them.
Yes.
So again, I support that
Yeah.
because the windows are really nice. It's a lovely building, and just to look in and see nice clear windows would be aesthetically pleasing to the eye as well. Regarding to the cleaning, sorry, am I correct in saying it is obviously we can see the ATMs there. I presume it's that section there from the ledge down to the ground to the curb flooring. Yeah. Again, that's brilliant because those photos there just show how dirty they get when kicked and leaned on, and obviously we do have a large cohort of revellers that that go down that street at night. So that is most welcomed. I think I've got to tip my hats off to HSBC for thinking this one through.
Yeah, I mean the only comment I'm told about cleaning that bottom section is while they've got it lovely and clean, it's put some anti-graffiti paint or finish on it so that it doesn't get messed up again. But it might have failed a stone.
Yeah, we might not be recommending that.
No.
Reason perhaps.
No, but it's very vulnerable. That
Yes.
It is.
Does it take on granite?
I don't know. I don't know.
Bottom bit's granite.
I mean, I thought Chris might know. I don't.
Yeah, we might say
I believe that's
we discourage them at this stage, but yeah, I mean, a support. Well, yeah, I mean, if that's everybody, then it's a wholehearted endorsement of the application. I think we're all, delighted to see the investment going in and the restrained approach, and maintaining the character and appearance of what is an important building.
Chair, to what extent does the rest of the building need cleaning? Because it does look a bit from here, as if that could do with a clean as well. The lovely stone. Is that asking too much? Too expensive?
I thought they'd said a general clean.
There's a general clean.
Yeah, store riser down, isn't it? But
It is, or just above.
granite store riser, as they describe it.
Yeah, I mean, the line on the plan runs along the line that so it's looking at the shelf for the projection forms from the low sill level down. We're looking at building any more.
Being Millstone Britain to come up.
It was the bottom of the building that looked the most.
It says, so they're not promising any more than that at the sill level, but
The whole building would look fabulous. Or with the stonework cleaned.
Yeah.
Stone above the granite.
It is a huge building, so quite an expensive.
big undertaking that would be.
Yeah.
Ask the question.
But ask if think about.
Yeah, I'm sure we
A
can. Yeah,
second phase,
yeah,
next year or something, to budget for that.
yeah. Let's do that.
That certainly would attract more customers to their bank. Good advertisement.
Indeed. Okay, Lindsay,
Yeah.
that's sufficient. Got that?
Yeah.
Good. Thanks, Chloe. Takes us on to the last one on the agenda, which is 21 Duffield Road.
Application on this building. To agree clearly listed building within structural parks conservation area. It's a 19th century road dated from approximately 1850. The heritage statement and heritage impact assessment is quite limited. There's no evidence for assessment of the original floor plans, phasing of walls, adapting in terms of cornice, these I'll show you in a minute. Assessment of stairs and floors. So this application looks to change the use from the 3 apartments which are within it at the moment to a 6-bedroom house in multiple occupation, together with the installation of 2 dormer windows to the rear elevation. So there's no proposal to do any works to the front elevation. So you've noticed we've got existing and proposed elevations to the rear. You can see the location of the 2 dormers and side elevation showing the height of the dormer in relation to the ridge. So that's the extent of the elevation information. Looking to and from, so looking to the rear of the elevation, there is a tree that you can see the roof lights which are currently there at the moment, and this is when the tree isn't in leaf. You can see it more clearly, obviously, than when it is. This is a dormer at the top right on one of the adjacent properties. So obviously they base the design. In terms of the ground floor plan existing on the left, proposed on the right, you've seen this online. The proposal is to create a communal kitchen, lounge and 1 bedroom with its own kitchen and bathroom. Draw your attention to the proposed removal of the chimney breast on all 3 floors, and slight change to study wall to provide the utility. So this location and the existing location. Obviously, the formation of the WC shower room and what looks to be some kitchen. Here are some photographs within the ground floor. You can see in the entrance hall there's some panelling in this particular location. The front door obviously is a modern one to its original fanlight above. There are some details, so obviously this is the front room in terms of the detail of the fireplace, the detail of the original stairs, and this is the photograph of the chimney breast, which is proposed to be removed in with the existing kitchen. And to the first floor, once again, removing the chimney breast and a stair from first to second floor. Some existing subdivision and new walls are proposed and changes to existing walls, doorway being blocked up. So there's quite a few changes, and there is a nice cornice within this room, which I'll show you a photograph of. So there is a current extension enclosure that's being removed, but there's obviously a proposed additional one blocking the doorway, moving the alignment to the wall, installation of WC ensuite to each room, and 4 rooms with bedrooms with their own WC showers on this floor. There's some subdivision removed in room 6. So you will see the extent of the changes. There is to this rear outrigger proposal to raise the floor level. So at the moment you'll notice there's some steps down into the lower room at the moment. They're proposing to raise it, but there's no sections to show how it's going to relate to etc. So here is some there's that enclosure within that room. Here's the view along the kitchen, and this is the wallway. There's a doorway and part of it's supposed to be removed in this location. That's the detail of the staircase, which is proposed to be removed from the first going up to the second floor. And then the up to the second floor, there's one bedroom, the WC shower room proposed, and 2 dorms. Once again, removal of the chimney and 1 stair. So you'll see in the information there is it probably pointed out there's a bit of disrepair, and within this room there's a slightly sinking of the top floor, but there's no proposals from a structural engineer or details of structural work. So checking that they're not actually proposing to do with the thick shade. So that's one offence. So there is quite limited justification for the works that they're proposing. There's no details of drainage rooms, locations of vents and flues. There's no specific details on fire partitioning or site issues. They're saying that sound insulation isn't needed and fire partitioning will be looked at a later stage. There are a couple of UPVC windows to the ground floor rear elevation. These may have been installed prior to listing, but I did notice that there was permission given previously to replace these PVC windows with timber sashes.
Okay, thanks, Chloe. So grade 2 listed buildings, quite a bit of change proposed. And they're looking at the heritage statement, there appears to be some interest here in terms of principal stair, paneling on the ground floor, fireplaces, etc. So there's a lack of clarity in terms of how these things will be dealt with, and there's a lot of compartmentation promised, including removing at the moment the principal stair goes up in the middle, as you can see, and then there's a little stair that runs up the side of the party wall to give you access to the loft space. So their scheme is based on continuing the principal stair all the way up, which then lands in the loft space and really takes up most of the loft space. So it makes that rather difficult to use. So then maybe that's triggered the need for dormer windows, etc., to try and kind of unlock. There's a few things to consider here. So any comments?
At that point alone, the top floor,
Okay.
the 2 dormer windows don't really achieve a great deal. I can't see it. Yeah, don't get much width on that living area, do you? Anyway, that's their choice. But there's a lot of interventions on that middle floor.
Drop back to that, Chloe.
We appear to be losing chimney pieces on
Yes.
ground floor, first floor, rear, south room. Do they have historic chimney pieces, or are they just chimney breasts?
They're just chimney breasts, as we can see, as
As
far as we can see from
There is a chimney.
here.
Tells us how it's supported.
I must say, Chair, I think it's a nice row of 5 houses, 1820s. We once thought of living in one years ago, but we nowhere to park the car. But I just think it's a real problem about the incentive to turn them into HMOs. But I must say, I'm strongly against subdividing houses of this quality any further. I think it's very regrettable. Likewise, sticking dormers even on the rear, which is very easily visible because you're going along Garden Street and you can see them. I really think it's it's over intensive use of not a very large house.
I mean, the application does say that there's 3 apartments at the moment.
Oh, yes, but
But the plans don't suggest that. So if they are apartments, then
it's,
all the rooms are kind of accessible.
yeah,
You have to have
it's already got full stud walls also in various places, I think.
but they're not like self-contained apartments. So on every floor, there are a series of rooms which they appear to be saying, well, that's 1 apartment per floor, but it doesn't really look like that. It looks like it's more like a house. Yeah, anyway.
I think with this new proposal, how well will it read as a grade 2 listed building? I mean, it is grade 2 listed. So is it that it is over intensively developed? I don't know. Does it want to read as a grade 2 listed house?
It feels like an awful lot of change.
It does.
Yeah.
Chopping out walls, adding new walls and compartmentation generally. And there are, in the existing plan, there are larger rooms and smaller rooms which might suggest living space and bathroom spaces, etc.
You
But
can read
They
the
haven't-
original layout.
they haven't, they've ignored that.
Oh.
Added lots of new elements. So it's, yeah, it does confuse the picture in terms of its
Yeah.
status. Please.
Do you know, just the sort of justification for removing that the stair arrangement, is that driven by the need to access the loft? And if it is, then the addition of the dormers as well seems like a really big trade-off to gain 1 extra unit, isn't it? So I suppose that adds to the argument over it being over intensive, isn't it?
Yeah, for me, I mean, sorry, do you mind dropping back to the top floor, Chloe? The point about bringing the central stair up is that it seems to then make that top floor very difficult to actually use. Whereas the stair that slides up the party wall obviously leaves that loft space unencumbered, really. So it makes much more sense to use that. The stair's already there.
I'd almost be better leaving that stair where it is and put in nice big looks roof lights in there.
You could make a perfectly nice living space up there. Yeah. Any other comments?
You can't tell people.
Chris?
How would the second floor work if that secondary staircase is?
This,
Yeah, you come out the main stair and then dogleg round to the right, don't you, and up. So it's it's probably a bit tight at the moment, but it is how it is.
there's room to put an ensuite in now.
Feels like there's a more sensitive solution to
Yeah.
dividing up the spaces, which would involve less
Units.
change
Yeah.
and intervention, really.
I think it's a good point actually about the staircase, isn't it? Because it ought to be as original, didn't it? Really, I was suggested.
Say of having the dorm,
But it could, yeah.
which Max quite rightly says,
Yeah.
would be visible, highly visible.
Just reduce the intensity a little. Intensity of the changes.
Okay, so I'm reading that as an objection.
Yeah.
And encouragement to revisit the internal arrangement to try and create a more sensitive layout that responds to the existing spaces a bit more sympathetically, making sure that all the important elements are retained, of course, which they're mentioned in here, but it's not clear how they're going to be dealt with. And I think there's some concerns about taking that central stair to the very top floor and the implications of that, and the dormer windows we feel are problematic too.
It's only on possibly, you know, it's seem to be, yeah.
Then obviously this photograph shows
Seems to
quite
be.
simple forms.
Yeah.
You wall to cross through it.
Surprised, thought it had been a bit more, that's it's been taken away.
Yeah, there has been some change, hasn't there? To limit the further change.
Yes.
Okay, Lindsay, is that clear?
I just ask a question? In terms of the, or our remit as in this committee, does the existence of the dormer next door influence anything? Or is that a matter for planning?
Yeah, is it next door actually?
It's on the more modern unlisted row to the rear of that. And obviously it looks like it's been part.
Is it being repaired? Is it new?
I'm not 100% sure. I'm just going back to,
Beyond the aerial view.
but it's something you can see.
I don't think there are any on the little terrace at this point, are there?
I just wondered in terms of precedent or.
Yeah,
It's on
good point.
the adjacent.
It's on the curve, isn't it?
It
Yeah,
is, yes.
Yeah, just a much later building.
Yeah, they came later.
Yeah, it's,
It's
yeah,
existing.
yeah, it's a more modern building.
It's got roof lights.
Yeah, plus all the comments, Chloe, about detail, absence of detail in terms of Lindsay, in terms of flues, vents, drainage runs, etc. Expect to see that as well. So, yeah, a bit to do there. Okay, so that concludes the items for consideration. Just a couple more things to talk about. One more on the agenda. So the city centre design guidance. You've had in your pack the a summary of that. But did you want to talk about that, Chloe? Just a quick run through of that, and then I can talk about the session that we had.
Oh, right, yeah, yeah.
So there's a very brief report, just flagging it formally within the agenda papers. Just giving a bit more information on what's happening and the emerging draft and expected milestones. Obviously, there was a limited meeting with the consultants, and at the last meeting it was agreed that Chris Tony, Paul Buckley and Ian Goodwin would attend that. And this is just to let you know that further stakeholder consultation with this group will occur, and they're looking at a possible workshop in February, probably late February. The date is to be confirmed. So as soon as we know when it is, we'll let you know. So you've got the opportunity to further engagement. But I think that you wanted to just feedback from that session.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think on the 8th of December, Paul McLaughlin, Vice Chair, myself and Ian went to, we attended an online workshop with the consultants, urban initiatives and other officers from the city. At that workshop, they posed 7 questions,
Which we replied to.
which we replied to on behalf of the committee. So we've got a copy of that, Chloe. Everybody had that, or is
No,
passing them around now? Or,
you were going to just, I think, you were going to just, and we'll put
and then
it
we'll
with
put it in the minutes. So
in the minutes.
I'll give you a little précis of that now, and then we'll put that in the minutes. So the first question they asked was what is our role? So we answered that in terms of safeguarding heritage assets in the city, etc. They asked if we support the preparation of a design guide and why, and we said we wholeheartedly support it. And we think it provides a great opportunity for the city to set its stall out properly in terms of what's expected of developers and their design teams, and an opportunity to communicate that which makes this city special. And how important it is to protect that special character and the uniqueness. They asked what we thought were the 3 most common issues in delivering design quality, and I'm sure everybody will have their own. But we said we gave them 4. We said making sure the document is ambitious and aspirational, with some clarity in terms of putting meat on the bones of the vision, and it references other documents, so it doesn't sit in glorious isolation. So there's a logic here that this forms part of a suite of documents. We said it should set out some clear ground rules in terms of the process, and make sure that the guidance stands up to scrutiny, so it sets the bar, you know, high as you'd expect. We said it should, it should, there's kind of a temptation to make the guidance overly prescriptive, and that should be avoided. But there needs to be evidence in here in how one actually does achieve what's required, in terms of respecting context. And the final point was making sure this thing has some teeth. So it's either, you know, it's adopted or and then enshrined in planning policy, ideally, and can stand up to challenge, so it means something. Then they asked us what are the 5 key topics that the code should cover. And I think we said that the chapters that are identified in here, we were comfortable with. So that the notion of, you know, introducing it, having citywide principles, having character area principles, base principles, public realm element, and a built form element seems to cover it. All depends on what goes on in there, of course. And they asked what type or scale of development specifically should be covered. And clearly there's a need to put a focus on major development, but ensure those principles are transferable to smaller schemes. And a clear message that the city is serious about protecting the key characteristics of the city and addressing this kind of steady undermining of this that can occur when mediocrity and ignorance prevail. And we thought it might also be pertinent to identify where these failings have occurred and ensure that they don't then become or get used as precedent. And then they asked which areas of the city require area-based guidance. Talked about the river side. There'll be lots, Arboretum Squares, a little mule, somewhat ignored. Yeah. And then finally, the level of detail that we would expect. So again, we talked about development briefs and design codes for the bigger, more important places as being useful tools. But really, it was about raising the bar significantly, attracting the best design teams to come and work here. And if they know what's expected, good designers and conservation professionals will rise to the challenge. So we were quite upbeat about what they're trying to do. It seems like a good, helpful thing. And as Chloe has said, that those notes will go into the minutes. So that was just you know, what we thought as a sort of.
Did you incorporate ours, or did we ask go in Civic Society to go in separately? Do you know? Because we did similar.
I'm not even sure I've seen those, Ian.
Ah, right. Okay. Well, you probably, if you didn't see them, they would have gone in separately then.
Yeah, I mean, why can't we append those then too?
So I was just going to say, do you want me to send those?
If you could.
Yeah.
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 I can,
Or you can just get old.
I can form those sets things.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, did you say anything that differs from what I've outlined?
No, not really. I did bang on a bit about the fact that the master plan that we did for the Beckettwell scheme.
Yeah.
And the fact that that's what we need for the rest of Derby, basically. Which I think we've talked about at the Civic Society meetings, haven't we? It's a big undertaking, obviously. And it requires resources, and that's what the problem is, I'm sure.
I may have seen those comments in that case,
Yeah,
but
you must have seen them.
they didn't get mocked up in here because it was
No, it's,
Civic Society.
it's slightly different angle.
Yeah, if you would forward them on, that would be helpful. Thanks. Chris, you were going to say something?
Yes. First of all, thank you to Chair, Vice Chair and to Ian Goodwin for representing us in that discussion. Hopefully we'll be able to continue to do so. Continues.
Yeah, I think that
So that's
February they're talking about another session, so
Yeah,
hopefully more
you're able to
get involved.
It's important that heritage aspects are central to all. Very much welcome. The idea that there will be a design guide for the cities. Reflects the national approach, which the national planning policy framework does refer to design guides a lot, you know, so it's the expectation that there should be one.
Mm.
And if there's going to be one, then it's very good. And if there are more than one voice inputting, you know, then there might be some advantage that the society is seen as a separate entity, and
Yeah.
I think so.
just two sets of people
Yeah.
saying something, you know, will counterbalance perhaps other inputs that would be different to our own in terms of its.
Well, we've actually had to tell,
Yeah.
you know, that the civil society get involved in the next stage.
Yeah.
You know, it was as a group,
Yes,
each
yes.
as an individual.
You know, I think that there's a bit more power there, and
Yeah.
if there's, you know, and then I just had one query really. So, in a number of places in the you know, this document that is appended to the report, proposed approach document, there's reference a couple of times in section 2 city centre wide principle building height and skyline, and in built form principles section 6 there's reference to building height, roofscape and so on. It just kind of makes me wonder what happened to the tall buildings.
I was just going to ask that.
And building height, you know, because this is definitely going to deal with building height.
Yeah.
Clearly, that's it. So, you know, how does all that fit together? And, you know, probably Chloe can't just answer that now, but it's perhaps a question that needs to be put at some point of how you know, how, because I was looking at somebody I just came across once in through work in Vienna, you know, it was just this week saying how wonderful the Westminster tall buildings work is, and you know, it's just appeared, and it just kind of brought it all back to me that you know, we just need to sort all that out. Really, it's sort of it disappeared, didn't it?
Yeah. And it is, of course, 15 years since the Urban Regeneration Company, including me, actually formulated this policy. So it would be nice for it to become a policy rather than just a notional policy, and to be built into something like this. And a design guide is the obvious place.
Just a question.
Yeah, well, we'll try and find some answers.
I'm not insane, USI with the people that did the same thing.
Yes, so that they've got all
Yeah.
that
The same
knowledge and information,
people
and it.
Tall buildings policy,
Yeah,
the same people.
yeah.
So, yeah, they're up to date.
So they know what was said.
It's the same guy, isn't it? It's the same chap who's heading it up, who did the tall buildings policy.
Germany. Somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
We'll get some answers. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going just on a similar theme. You mentioned a suite of documents.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering how this design guide, together with the tall buildings policy and so on, how they'll fit in with the local plans being revisited.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of timeliness, will these all arrive together? Will one be incorporated in the other?
Feed in to informing the local plan.
Right, okay. Thank you.
And what else? Ambition and 20. What happened to that?
Yes.
It's just possibly rhetorical.
Because from
Understood.
a planning point of view, it's the local plan that the planning committee has to
Yeah,
come back to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So in terms of it, of anything
Integration
having any
of
teeth, there's
Exactly.
connection.
It used to be local. Yeah.
You know, with
Yeah.
the planning committee has got to have the ability to make decisions based on that.
Yeah.
So we can have guidance and all sorts, you know, around that. But if it hasn't got any legal weight, then
That's
that
right.
can be challenged, can't it? So,
Exactly.
which is what I'm learning to my frustration on the planning committee.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think we've made that point and we ought to continue making it.
Yeah.
All right.
I think at that point, we'll close the meeting. Thank you all for your contributions as ever.